Hello, everyone. I'm Kamraun.
And I'm Billy. Welcome to the HorseFrog Podcast, home of your two favorite professional digressors.
Today, we will be discussing Book 5, Chapter 14 of Gardens of the Moon, a novel in the Malazan Book of the Fallen.
Now, this podcast series is intended to be a companion to reading or listening to the books in the Malazan universe. This is not a book review, and it's not intended to be a replacement to reading the books. Know that we both think this series is the best story ever written, and we're approaching this from a purely fanboy point of view, and that we will not be providing any literary critique.
We will be covering the events of the books in a linear fashion. There will be spoilers for those that have not read the books. We will try not to spoil anything prior to us covering that portion of the respective book.
Now, quick warning, I don't believe so, but there might possibly be some hints of past or future violence. I don't know. It's just actually more of an exposition-heavy chapter, isn't it?
There's absolutely violence against great ravens today.
Oh, that's
past
true.
Violence.
Well, you see past violence.
Evidence
past
of
violence.
it.
Evidence of past violence.
So those bird lovers out there, be warned.
Yeah, forensic violence, yeah. So, yeah, I'm sorry. I do apologize for that.
All right, Book 5, The Gadrobi Hills, Chapter 14. Book 5 begins with a passage. Quote, "Beyond these thin hide walls a child sits. Before her on worn silk a deck is arrayed. She cannot yet speak, and the scenes before her she's never before seen in this life. The child gazes upon a lone card named Obelisk. The stone gray, she can feel its roughness in her mind. Obelisk stands buried in a grassy knoll like a knuckle protruded from the earth, past and future. This child's eyes are wide with terror, for cracks have appeared in the stone of stones, and she knows the shattering is begun." End quote. The passage is titled Silver Fox. It is written by Outrider Herlokel of the 6th Army. I take the obelisk as the marker to the Jaghut tyrant's tomb. She is seeing an omen of things to come in regards to the tyrant's release. Do you agree?
I believe so.
Okay.
I very much believe so. And
it's interesting that Silver Fox or Tattersail, Nightchill, and Bellardan combined knows this omen is something to be fearful of. We have no idea how much of each personality is coming through in this child at this point, or what this child is capable of remembering from the past life experiences.
Yeah, and in regard to that, I'm just kind of, I think this is probably because I'm also because I know who is the most dominant. But, I always think Tattersail is always more dominant anyhow because we know her to be an adept and one that in this book so far is the one person we've seen use a deck of dragons.
Mm-hmm.
And so I always kind of think of her when I hear that.
Okay. Chapter 14 begins in the 907th year of the 3rd millennium during the season of Thandaray in the year of the 5 Tusks. This ties the Darujhistan timeline into the Malazan timeline. In the Malazan calendar, it's the 1163rd year of Burn's sleep, and that's the same year as far as the Malazans are concerned for the storyline. Nothing's progressed there.
Yes.
It's noted that this is also the year of the Talan Imas reckoning, the year of gathering Talan Arise. That was alluded to by Tool previously when he was talking to Lorne one time.
Yeah.
We begin the chapter with Lorne and Tool traveling to the Jaghut tyrant's barrow. Lorne has been awoken by Tool's criticism of her falling into complacency. As I imagine, waking up to a sword at your throat would.
Yes, it would. Yeah.
She had been shaken by the thought that she could become careless so easily. This was a feeling she was not familiar with, and she was unsure of how to deal with it. As they approached the Gadrobi Hills, which appeared first to their south, then to the west as well, she developed an urgency to regain her confidence. The mission was approaching a vital juncture, and success in the barrow would ensure success with the rest of the mission. More on that last point later. Since dawn, she had driven her horses hard, attempting to make up for time due to the slow pace at the beginning of the journey. She now walked the horses as they were in need of rest. Tool walked beside her. When prodded, Tool spoke often, though he denied her any information on matters important to the Empire. Every line of questioning led back to the vows he had taken at the last gathering. Something was coming to a head with Tool, and she wondered if it had to do with the freeing of the Jaghut tyrant. She would not let this threaten the mission, though. As Dujek and Tashrin had reminded her, she was the adjunct, and thus Lorne played no role in this herself. She was the arm of the Empress. Toole noted that he had observed Lorne frowning for 2 days and asked if it was significant. She snapped, "No, it isn't," and again attempted to clear her own personal feelings out of her head. She said, "Toole, what is significant, as you put it, is that I don't know enough about what we're doing. We are seeking a standing stone, the Barrow's marker. Well, assuming it can be found, why was it not so long ago? Why could not 3,000 years of hunting find this barrow?" Toole calmly replied, "We will find the standing stone. It marks the barrow in truth, but the barrow is not there." Lorne scowled and thought to herself, more riddles. She asked Toole to explain further. After a moment of silence, Toole said, "I am born of an elder warren adjunct known as Talon. It is more than a source of magic. It is also a time." You can see why people get a little confused about warrens and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, my word, yeah. Yeah. Especially when they do all these exposition dumps like this. It's like, I get it. It's okay. It's okay. Just keep calm, and as long as you know where your towel is, you're all good.
Yeah. Lorne asked if Toole was saying the barrow was in a different time and if he planned to reach it by using his warren. Toole said, "No, there is no parallel time any different from the one we know. That time is gone, past. It is more a matter of flavor. Adjunct, may I continue?" Lorne's lips pressed together in a straight line. She did not like that. Nope. Impatient to get the answer out of him, I guess.
Was it the patient to get the answer out of him, or is it because she's angry that Toole shut her down? Like, can I continue, please? It's like,
are you going to let me finish?
Are you interrupting? Will you stop interrupting, sir?
I mean, she's enthusiastic to get the answer, you know?
Okay.
You know how he can go on.
Oh, yeah.
When he was introducing himself, you might have been there 3 weeks before you got to the end of his accolades.
Oh, my word,
right?
yes. Well, dude, that's a lot of accolades in 300,000 years. I mean, that's a lot to lay out. He could have sat there for, probably a couple of years just laying it out who he was. It's like, I'm the guy that did this, and this just, keep going. And okay. Now,
Toole continued. The Jaghut who entombed the tyrant were born of a different elder warren. But the term elder is relative only to the existing warrens of this age. The Jaghos Omtos Felak is not elder when compared to Talon. They are the same.
Sorry, you have to repeat that. You said the Jaghos. Say the Jaghut Omtos Felak.
Okay. Them Jaghos, you got to watch out for them. The
is that how we wound up? Is that a jab at Ikarium's mom? Sorry.
The Jaghut Omtos Felak is not elder when compared to Talon. They are the same, of the same flavor. He asked if Lorne understood so far, which upset her further, but she confirmed that she did, and Toole nodded, then continued. He just doesn't want to have to repeat himself, and she's getting all upset about it.
I know it. Well, I never thought about. I'm going to say something I never thought about too until kind of now is this weird mental lassitude and other things that's going on with her. Is it because of all that stuff that's gone on around her, and she's just really realizing that she doesn't know anything of what she's supposed to be the Empress's right-hand woman.
Yeah. At
least that's been my understanding. It's like she appears to know nothing about what they're doing out here.
Yeah.
I mean, why does Toole know and she doesn't? So I can understand the frustration.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a combination of her youth, just being impatient, and
true.
She is starting to put things together and realizing how dangerous the situation is, and not necessarily liking what's happening.
Right. Okay. Thank you. That's a good way of putting it.
Toole said, "The barrow has not been found before, precisely because it is Omtos Felak. It lies within a warren now lost to the world. Yet, I am Talon. My warren touches Omtos Felak. I can reach it, adjunct. Any Talan I mass could. I was chosen because I am without a clan. I am alone in every way." That's sad. To be truly alone in the world would be a terrible thing.
Yeah, and think about this: is they've been apparently kind of linked for millennia, hundreds of millennia. And so it's like, think about that. If you've been linked with all these folks and all of a sudden you're not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And some of this was a little bit of new info for me. I think the fact about talk about Amtos Falak being gone.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that have existed if at least as far back, which is not that far back, to when the Jag Hut, remember that we lost about half the Logros clan. That's where Tool is from, is the clan Logros. But he talked about the unnumbered
in 7
Jag
cities,
Hut war.
right?
Yeah, and they disappeared for that time. So wouldn't the Amtos Falak have been around then if they were after a clan of Jag Hut?
Yeah, maybe he thinks all the Jag Hut are now extinct. And
maybe so,
because of that, it can't exist. There's no way to access it, possibly.
Maybe so. No, I could understand from a mortal point of view, this being new or elder, kind of deal. But yeah, I just the idea of these things just disappearing. But we do know that Warrens come and go. Apparently, it sounds like it's.
I think it's really a matter of whether there's somebody there to either practice it or give it power.
Okay.
And if, let's just say theoretically there were Jag Hut still alive, the Talan Mass would be hunting them down.
Yeah, they
would. As far as they know, that's my suspicion. The fact that they don't know that any exist,
maybe they just
he's thinking it's dead.
Yeah, maybe they just shield their use of it so that because their Warrens are close enough to each other, they could probably sense each other using magic easily, I'm assuming.
Yeah. Lorne asks about the significance of Tool being alone. Tool looked at her and said, "Adjunct, what we seek to accomplish is the freeing of a Jag Hut tyrant. Such a being, should it escape our control or defy our predictions, is capable of destroying this continent. It can enslave all living upon it, and it would do so if permitted. If, instead of me, Logros had selected a bonecaster, and if the tyrant was freed, that bonecaster would become enslaved. A Jag Hut tyrant is dangerous alone. A Jag Hut tyrant with an Imass bonecaster at its side is unstoppable. They would challenge the gods, and they would kill most of them. Also, I am without a clan. Thus, my enslavement, should that event befall, would not enslave blood kin." That's another point of escalation.
Yeah.
Dude, 2 beings able to enslave an entire continent and challenge the existing gods and kill most of them. That's
the one. That's
wild power levels.
Yeah, and kill most of them. It's like, just kind of like, this would kill most of them. That's horrifying.
Yeah. I don't understand how there's tyrants enslaving people.
Is it just all mental control? That's the only thing I could think of.
Yeah, I don't know. Lorne stared at Tool in shock. She thought, what were the Empress and Tayshrin thinking of? How could they hope to control this thing? On this last point, wasn't she just thinking to herself that the plan was virtually a guaranteed success if they succeeded in freeing the Jag Hut tyrant? I said we'd come back to this point.
Yeah.
It's like within a couple minutes, she's shaken to the point where she's like, what are they thinking?
Yeah. Well, it's almost like I think she was all down with it until she had it spelled out what a Jag Hut tyrant could do.
Mm-hmm.
Because do you think it's just lost knowledge again to these mortals? Because again, when we have these entities that are capable, which we've seen multiple entities that are 300,000 plus years old. I mean, dude, 1,000 years is a long time for the human race.
Mm-hmm. And
so think about that. It's like this. Think of how much knowledge can be lost in 1,000 years. So even though these guys wouldn't think it's lost, it's like we would know nothing about it. And now that she's been pointed out how dangerous this tyrant is now she's just now like, oh.
Yeah. She's like, can you repeat that?
Yeah, please, repeat that, please. Say what? We're able to destroy the what? It's like...
Lorne asked if Tool was saying he was expendable. He confirmed. In that moment, Lorne realized that she was also expendable. She asked what would stop the tyrant. How would they control it? Tool informed her they wouldn't. That was the gamble. Yeah, let's roll the dice on this one and see what happens. Unleash this entity capable of enslaving the entire continent. What could go wrong?
They're going to roll a 1. They're gonna roll a 1. Is my fear. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think they necessarily roll a 1.
No, I don't think so.
I think they succeed in what they set out to do. We'll see.
You'll see, definitely. Yeah, actually,
coming pretty quick.
It doesn't play out quite like they thought.
That's
definitely.
Yeah.
Lorne asked what Tool meant. Tool shrugged and said, "The Lord of Moonspawn, Adjunct. He will have no choice but to intervene." Lorne asked if he was capable of stopping the tyrant. Tool said, "Yes, Adjunct, he is, although it will cost him dearly, weaken him. More, he is capable of delivering the single punishment that a Jaghut tyrant fears most." A gleam of light rose in his eye sockets, and he said, "Enslavement, Adjunct." Lorne was confused. She thought this meant Rake would have the tyrant on his side. Tool clarified by telling Lorne that while Rake would perform the enslavement, the tyrant would be beyond his reach as well. The Empress knew who Rake was and what he possessed. Lorne said, "He's a Tist Andi and a High Mage." This caused Tool to laugh. He said, "Adjunct, he is Animander Rake, the son of darkness, bearer of Dragnipur." She frowned upon hearing this. Tool noticed her confusion and said, "Dragnipur is a sword, born of the age before light, and darkness, Adjunct, is the goddess of the Tist Andi." Lorne was silent for several minutes. Finally she said, "The Empress knows how to pick her enemies." Tool said, "I am sure the Tist Andi regret their coming to this world." Lorne was incredulous. She asked, "They came to this world? From where? How? Why?" Tool said, "The Tist Andi were of Curald Galain, the Warren of Darkness. Curald Galain stood alone, untouched. The goddess, their mother, knew loneliness." He hesitated, then said, "There is probably little truth in this story, Adjunct." Ooh, gossip from the Elder Times. Please tell me more.
I love how we start to get a little of this kind of OG info. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, here's what I heard.
Yeah. I heard that.
Lorne asked Tool to go on. Tool obliged. He said, "In her loneliness, the goddess sought something outside herself. Thus was born light. Her children, the Tist Andi, saw this as a betrayal. They rejected her. Some hold they were cast out, others that they departed their mother's embrace by choice. While Tist Andi mages still use the Warren of Curald Galain, they are no longer of it, and some have embraced another Warren, that of Starvald Demelain." Lorne noted that as the first Warren, to which Tool nodded. Lorne asked who that Warren belonged to. Tool replied, "It was the home of dragons, Adjunct." There was a lot of information just dumped on us in that section.
Little bitty section was really pregnant with a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, and some of it we've kind of been telling you about over time because it helped to explain the Warrens a little bit.
Yeah.
Right? So we got a little bit more delineation between the Warrens, specifically the Elder Warrens, and their relation to one another. We've kind of gone into that before a little bit.
Yeah.
And just as a quick reminder, Talon is generally related to fire, and then Amtos Falak is related to ice. Also, the idea of a Talan Imes Bonecaster, and you can kind of think of them as a high mage of sorts in relation to the Talan, paired with a Jaghunt Tyrant being an unstoppable force is presented there, and that really leaves a lasting impression, just how powerful they would be if they joined forces.
Yeah, that's a really frightening idea to me for some reason. Is it due to the fact that I think for me, this is a gritty, hard fantasy world. Now, a lot of fantasy worlds we come to have some hard things happen in pretty worlds, as kind of the impression I get from a majority of fantasy. This is why I like this world, is it feels more real. While it's probably quite pretty, it's quite brutal. And we've seen that what sorcery is capable of at the Battle of Pale, and that's just a little bit of sorcery. Mm-hmm. I get the impression. And so, this sounds orders of magnitude. Is that the correct phrase? Orders of magnitude?
Yes.
Sounds orders of magnitude worse.
Yeah, we're getting that escalation again.
Yes. And orders of magnitude, that sounds like a metal band's album name, doesn't it? It's like a Swedish black metal. Pardon my Swedish black metal digression there.
Nice.
Need to stock up with some corpse paint.
We also got some really good background on the Tist Andi, specifically their falling out with their goddess as she sought the company of light.
Yeah.
And we are also introduced to the idea that some Tist Andi have taken to the Warren of Dragons after the falling out. Who have we seen described on a card in the deck of dragons that is half humanoid, half dragon?
That's Rake, Amanda Rake.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So we had a little foreshadowing there.
Yeah. That's a lot of info right in that little bitty bit. I love it.
It was. Yeah.
I love Tool being so loquacious for the land I mass.
That whole interplay between dark and light interests me.
Yeah.
I'm not as interested in the intricacies of the Tist Andi royalty and all that kind of stuff,
right.
But just the idea that it was dark and then light came about, and then also shadow, because you can't have light without shadow. The cascade effect of what that caused. And I don't want to get too far into it, but it does introduce some really interesting stuff that happens later on.
That's true. And my question is, and I don't know if we ever receive an answer, if I haven't forgotten, is that what resulted in, like, because they left and they came to this place already, the world of the Malazan universe, did it already exist? Was it the result of light and dark that there is now an existence? Kind of, you know what I'm saying?
I don't know. I haven't read The Forge of Darkness or whatever the next book in that series was. I was waiting for him to finish all three before I read them. He never finished the third one. But I'm not sure if they do talk about that there. We will have to look into that, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
We are taken to the entourage of the coin bearer as they leave Darujistan. Murillo halted and turned in his saddle on the road to observe Call throwing up. Kruppa and Crocus were ahead of them at the Worry Crossroads, and this would be on the road leading east out of Darujistan.
Yeah.
Murillo thought it was a wonder to see Call sober, and even further, a miracle that he'd insisted on accompanying them. For a moment, he wondered if Call suspected anything about Murillo and Rallick's plans. Then he pushed it aside because Call would have cracked him and Rallick on the head if he knew.
Wow.
Call's pride was the cause of his current situation in life, and getting drunk didn't help, but made it worse. Call now wore his brigandine armor, arm and leg greaves included. When combined with his bastard sword, mail coif, and helmet, he looked the part of a noble knight. A brigandine is a form of body armor from the Middle Ages. It is a garment typically made of heavy cloth, canvas, or leather. It's lined internally with small oblong steel plates riveted to the fabric, sometimes with a second layer of fabric on the inside. I thought I might just describe it for those that are unfamiliar.
I appreciate that. I'm familiar, so I appreciate that.
Call was also the only one among the party that rode a horse. The others rode donkeys that had been procured by none other than Kruppa. Call finished emptying his stomach and gave Murillo a wan smile before they both rode on to catch up with the rest of the party. This is really the first glimpse we've had of Call outside of him being drunk or yelling about 5 black dragons living in Moonspawn.
Yeah, it's truly, I guess, our real intro to him, really.
Yeah. Kruppa was speaking when they rode up. No more than a handful of days, assures Kruppa, wizened traveler of the wastes beyond glittering Darujistan. No reason to be so glum, lad. Consider this a mighty adventure. Typical teenager that he was, Crocus threw up his hands and said, Adventure? I don't even know what we're doing out here. Won't anybody tell me anything? I can't believe I agreed to this.
Has he got that Luke Skywalker vibe?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like episode 4 particularly. Luke Skywalker, fresh off the farm.
Uh-huh.
Has anybody got to tell me what's going on here?
Probably about the same age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much.
Murillo grinned at Crocus and reminded him that he had often expressed curiosity about their travels outside of Darujistan. His questions were about to be answered. Crocus hunched down in his saddle and whined, You told me you all worked as agents for some merchant. What merchant? I don't see any merchant. And where's our horses? How come Call's the only one with a horse? How come nobody gave me a sword or something? Why? Murillo held up a hand, laughed, then interrupted him. He said, All right, enough, please. We are agents for a merchant, but it's rather unusual merchandise we're acquiring. Erikson's doing a really good job of capturing the impatience of the teenage youth here.
Yeah, he captures almost everything perfectly.
Kruppa chimed in. He said, "A rather unusual merchant as well," Kruppa adds with a warm smile. "Lad, we are agents seeking information on behalf of our employer, who is none other than High Alchemist Baruch." Crocus looked at Kruppa and said, "Baruch? And he can't afford to give us horses?" Kruppa cleared his throat and said, "Ah, yes, well, there was something of a misunderstanding between worthwhile, honest Kruppa and a conniving, deceitful stabler. Nonetheless, Kruppa received full recompense, thus saving our kind master 11 silver coins." Murillo muttered, "Which we'll never see."
Yeah, Kruppa's got them 11 pieces.
Kruppa went on. "As for a sword, lad, what on earth for? Ignore blustery, pallid Call there, with all his sweaty trappings of war, a mere affectation of his. And Murillo's rapier is no more than an ornamental trifle, though no doubt he would claim that the jewels and emeralds studding said item's hilt are toward achieving fine balance or some such martial detail." Kruppa smiled beatifically at Murillo. After firing shots, he smiles at him. Love it. Also, speaking of sweaty trappings, Kruppa doesn't need any armor to sweat. He's one to talk.
Here's a question. Is Kruppa really a sweaty white guy? Or is it a sweaty guy? Or is it an illusion?
Definitely sweaty.
Yeah, I'm thinking so.
He's covered in grease and grime and pastry filling and
he is bueno excellent.
Honey glaze from his.
he is that character I've sent pictures from Section 8. He's bueno excellent. He's real sweaty white guy. A lot of chest hair showing, gold chain. You know.
I don't see him as having chest hair. Oddly.
I'm not talking a lot. Like a singular 3 or 5 kind of poking out.
Okay.
Scraggly.
I don't know. I always kind of envisioned him as really, no, just like he's got that curly hair and stuff, but other than that, he's kind of just not particularly masculine, right? So I don't envision him as having much body hair.
Oh, okay.
You know, like not facial hair, not chest hair. You know what I mean?
Well, it's true, especially if he talks about himself beatifically all the time. It's like maybe he may be all slick and shiny.
Yeah. If a cherub grew up to adulthood, but did not hit puberty. So it's like an adult-sized cherub. That's kind of what I envisioned him as.
It was it would get us in trouble. Move along.
Okay. Kruppa finished, saying, "Nay, lad, the true master at acquiring information need no such clumsy pieces of metal. Indeed, we disdain them." Crocus asked what type of information they were looking for. Kruppa waved a hand in the air and said, "All that yon ravens overhead can see. Other travelers, other efforts within the Gadrobi Hills, all grist for Master Baruch's mill of news. We observe without being observed. We learn while remaining a mystery to all. We ascend to the..." Call interrupted. He moaned, "Will you shut up?" He then asked who brought the water. Murillo handed him a clay jug webbed in twine. Undaunted, Kruppa said, "A sponge squeezed beneath the burden of armor. See the man down our precious water. See it immediately reappear salty and grimy on his weathered skin. What yon poisons have leaked forth." Kruppa shudders at the thought. Again, he's just talking about him sweating.
Right?
What? It's the pot calling the kettle black, man. I'm telling you.
Well, maybe it's just, is it like Texas where it's real humid and everyone's always real sweaty and we all talk about everyone being sweaty and we hate being sweaty and it's just everyone's sweaty?
I guess so.
And forget Ralph Lister. I need you reading Kruppa for me. I need to just
Come on. It's intolerable. He's so difficult, man.
Oh, he's hard, dude. It's brutal. That's absolutely brutal. I don't know how Ralph Lister does it. I'm always blown away when I listen to that fellow read. I'm like, dadgum.
Yeah, I don't know how he does all the voices, man. It keeps them in order.
I get exactly. How does he know to do the same voice?
Yeah. Call ignored Kruppa and handed the water jug to Crocus. He told him to buck up. He was being paid well, and with luck there would be no trouble. With the type of work they were performing, excitement was the last thing they wanted. Call then glared at Murillo and told him that he'd feel a lot better if Rallick were with them. Crocus took this poorly and said, "And I'm an unworthy stand-in, right? You think I don't know that, Call? You think," Call said, "Don't tell me what I think. I never said you were a stand-in, Crocus. You're a thief. And those kinds of skill come in a lot handier than anything I could manage. The same for Murillo. And as for Kruppa, well, his talents extend no further than his stomach and whatever he wants jammed in it. You and Rallick share a lot more than you think, and that's why you're the most qualified man here. That's a nice take on Kruppa there. I wonder if Call knows what other skills Kruppa has.
That's a good question. He may not.
Also, it's a bit of an exaggeration on what Crocus brings of value there. But I guess Call knows Crocus needs to be bolstered up a bit in this moment, right?
Oh yeah. He's. I think it's a lot just to kind of, like you said, it's a lot. But he kind of putting his arm around him, saying, "Hey, it's all really good, but kind of prophetic."
Kruppa said, barring the necessary brains, of course, which is my true skill, though one such as Call would never understand such abilities, alien as they are to him. Call leaned towards Crocus and loudly whispered, "You're wondering why I'm wearing all this armor. It's because Kruppa's in charge. When Kruppa's in charge, I don't feel safe unless I'm prepared for war. If it comes to that, lad, I'll get us out alive. I've done it before, right, Kruppa?" Kruppa said, "Absurd accusations." He sniffed. I wonder what Call is talking about here.
Oh, I'm sure that Rallick, Murillo, Cole, and Kruppa have been into some seriously wild adventures and most assuredly sweaty adventures. I'm sure thanks to Kruppa, a lot. I'm sure he's gotten them into a lot of trouble.
Yeah. Crocus again asked what they were looking for. Murillo told him they'd know when they saw it, and then nodded to the hills and said, "Up there." After a moment of silence, Crocus said, "The Gadrobi Hills." "Are we looking for a rumor, Murillo?" Murillo stiffened. Kruppa replied, "Indeed, lad. Rumors upon rumors. I applaud your cunning conclusion. Now, where is that water jug? Kruppa's thirst has become intense." Erikson really does an excellent job of writing a group of friends who have had a history of experiences to draw from, doesn't he?
Oh, absolutely. Between these guys and the Bridge Burners, these are some of my favorite characters in the series. Because they are very human, and it's very. I almost feel like it's from conversations probably amongst his own friends, almost in weird ways. You get that pushing,
I could see that.
Push and pull from the kind of way that friends talk amongst each other sometimes, with some exaggeration. Some like, "Oh, shut up, please." It's like it's very well written, very fun stuff.
Right. Sari was following the coin bearer. She had no issues leaving Darujhistan through Jamit's gate. She didn't even need to have Crocus in visual range. She could sense both him and Kruppa, along with two others, a league beyond Worrytown. Worrytown is to the east of Darujhistan. Sari thought that the mission they were on concerned the welfare of Darujhistan. She was sure that the members of the party were all spies, and able ones at that. The dandy Murillo could glean information from the noble-born circles. Rallick was the eyes and ears in the Assassin's Guild. Kruppa covered the world of thieves and lower classes, where rumors sprang to life like weeds in muddy soil. Call was clearly a military man, serving as the group's sword arm. She's not that wrong about these assumptions, actually. Interesting that she came to these conclusions with the information that she had gleaned so far.
I know it's really, really quite well spotted from her.
Yeah. Sari noted that it was an adequate group to protect the coin bearer, though they wouldn't be able to stop her from killing him, especially with Rallick's absence on the mission. There was a nagging feeling in her mind that the group was heading into danger, one which threatened her as well. Once she passed Worrytown, she picked up her pace, and when she found herself alone, she opened the Warren of Shadow and entered. The adjunct approached a hill very similar to the hills surrounding it. The summit was cloaked in grass, and it was dwarfed by the hills around it. One side had half a dozen wind-twisted scrub oaks among a scree of broken boulders. The summit flattened out into a rough circle, with rock pushing through here and there. Ravens wheeled overhead, so high that they were specks in the sky. Lorne watched Toole approach the hill. She slumped in her saddle. The midday heat sapped her strength. A sluggishness reached through to her thoughts, which she attributed to the pervasive dread clinging to the air, the sense that what they were doing was wrong, terribly wrong. She thought that the Empress's plan to unleash the Jaghut tyrant in order to weaken Anomander Rake when he dealt with the tyrant, and to trust him to destroy it, now seemed precipitous, absurd in its ambitions. Toole stopped walking and waited for Lorne to reach him. At his feet, Lorne saw a gray rock sticking roughly 10 inches from the earth. Tool informed Lauren this was the barrow marker. Lauren raised an eyebrow. She said, "There's hardly any soil cover here at all. Are you suggesting this standing stone has eroded down to its present size?" In response, Tool said, "The stone has not eroded. It has stood here since before the sheets of ice came to cover this land. It stood here when the Reevy Plain was an inland sea, long before the waters withdrew to what is now Lake Azure. The stone is in fact taller than both of us combined, and what you think to be bedrock is shale." You better not misidentify a rock around a Talani mass. I'll tell you what.
They don't take kindly to those that don't know stone any better than that.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, man.
Yep. These guys put the stone in the Stone Age. He's right. This guy's really take it seriously.
Nice, dude. That's great. The hint of anger in Tool's voice surprised Lauren. She set to hobbling the horses and asked how long they would stay in their present location. Tool informed her they would stay the night and he would open the way at dawn. Lauren heard the cry of ravens above them and observed them wheeling overhead. The ravens had been with them for days, and she wondered if it was unusual, then shrugged and went about her business. That pretty much confirms it's great ravens following them around.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Lauren made camp and gathered some firewood, which she reckoned would give little smoke. She didn't anticipate company, but she was being cautious nonetheless. Before sunset, she climbed a hill nearby that was higher, and she climbed to the summit where she could see leagues in every direction. The hills continued on southward and turned into steppes to the southeast. Due east lay the Catlin Plain, barren of life. To the north, a forest was visible, the line sweeping westward to the Talon Mountains. She sat and waited for nightfall, her goal to see any campfires that appeared. The heat remained oppressive even as night fell. She walked around the summit to stretch her legs. She saw evidence of past excavations as well as evidence of the Gadrobi herders from as far back as when they fashioned stone tools. On the south side of the hill, a quarry had been carved out. Flint was visible beneath the shale. Lauren became curious and scrambled down to inspect. She found stone flakes in the pit's base. Picking one up, she found it was the tip of a spear point, expertly shaped. She recognized this technology was echoed in Tool's sword and needed no more proof that humans had come from the Imass. Thinking Empire was part of their legacy and that it could very well be a curse, she wondered if humanity was set to become versions of the Imass, repeating their same mistakes. Was war all there was? Would they bow to it in immortal servitude, no more than deliverers of death? She sat down and thought the Imass had conducted a war of extermination lasting hundreds of thousands of years. Wondering who or what the Jaghut had been, she remembered Tool telling her they'd abandoned the concept of government and turned their backs on empires, armies, cycles of rise and fall, fire and rebirth. They'd walked alone, disdainful of their own kind, dismissive of community, of purposes greater than themselves.
I think this kind of answers something I had mentioned earlier about about the lack of knowledge of the Jaghut.
Mm-hmm.
I think right there, she just kind of, anything she knows is basically she's learned from Tool in the past 2 days, or however many days she's been hanging with him, is the only thing she's ever learned of the Jaghut, apparently, other than the name.
Right. Mm-hmm. That's as much as we've learned about him as well at this point, right? Pretty much.
Yeah, very much so.
She realized they wouldn't have started a war, and murmured, "Oh, Lasine, I know why we fear this Jaghut tyrant. Because he became human. He became like us. He enslaved, he destroyed, and he did it better than we could. That's why we fear." She fell silent and tears rolled down her cheeks, and she wondered who was crying from her eyes, her or Lasine. Was it for humanity? What did it matter? Such tears had been shed before, and would be again, by others like her and yet unlike her, and the winds would dry them all. I'm not sure how anyone could look at the Talani Mass at this point and think they were the good guys. Based on what we're hearing about the Jaghut, excluding the tyrant, of course, they seem prone to retreat, seeking solitude. We need more information on the Talani Mass justification for their endless war against them to kind of change that viewpoint,
I know it, and I'm not sure if we'll ever get it either.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to say to give anything away in that answer. It's just one of those kind of things. I don't honestly know if it's ever answered. It's just one of those things that is. And I think that you're right that they are definitely. I am curious why, what was it? What was it that drove? Was it some kind of mind control event in the past? And when they broke loose, it was like, boy, they ain't going to have none of that no more. And, and they made a vow. Is it something like that? I don't know.
It's hard to say. Maybe we'll come across something as we read through that gives us more insight that we forgot about.
Yeah, because there's a chance we could have forgot. There's a lot of info in these books, man.
There's something in the back of my mind that I just kind of remember that I don't remember what book it was in. We may get a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I know some stuff. We know. I know that we learned some things about IMAS, but what we learn, I can't remember if it pertains to the Jag Huts at all, or we deal with the IMAS quite a bit because they are our ancestors, I believe.
Mm-hmm. We are taken to Perrin and Talk the Younger. Perrin asks Talk if he had a theory about the black, burned, crusted raven lying on the ground in front of him. Talk said, "Damned if I know, Captain. I've been counting, though. That's the 11th roasted bird in the last 3 hours. And unless they're covering the Reeve plain like some bloody carpet, it seems we're on somebody's trail." The great ravens are taking some heavy losses in this pursuit.
Yeah, they are. Most assuredly.
Perrin grunted and kicked his horse forward. Talk followed him and said, "And it's a nasty somebody. Those ravens look like they was blasted from the inside out. Hell, even the flies avoid them. It's horrible. Yeah. It's like they got microwaved or something, And for the flies to avoid them, they must be tainted pretty badly."
That's the one that sticks with me. Yeah, it's bad enough looking, but to think that the flies won't even go near it, it's like, It's kind of disturbing in and of itself, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Perrin said, in other words, sorcery. They had gone through Talon Forest following a woodcutter's trail. The route shaved days off their journey. They'd found the ravens as soon as they returned to the Reeve Trader's track. Tracks only a few days old for 2 horses and 1 moccasined man on foot were also visible. That would be Lorne and Toole, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Talk muttered, "Can't understand why the adjunct and the IMAS are moving so slowly. You think she doesn't know something's trailing her?" He had repeated this multiple times since the start of the day. Perrin said, "She's an arrogant woman, and with that IMAS with her, why should she worry?" Dang, Perrin, tell us how you really feel.
Right? Oh, my goodness. He's getting kind of huffy over this.
Yeah, he's got a pretty low opinion of her right now.
Yeah, very low.
Talk said, "Power draws power," and scratched at his scar again. The motion triggered yet another flash of light in his head, but it was changing. At times he thought he could almost see images, scenes within the light. "Damn Seven Cities superstitions anyway," he growled under his breath. As a quick reminder, the superstition is someone that loses an eye develops another sense of sight.
Why I like this is another. I've told you that there's some things that remind me of some of these Michael Moorcock books. One of them in particular is Anamanda Rake, but there's one of the Eternal Champions is called Corum, and Corum loses a hand and an eye, and these strange gods give him a hand and an eye. And what he does is when he kills people, Corum is more sympathetic and more humanoid, or less alien than Elric, and has some sympathy for the humans. But people he kills, they go to this realm. And then when what he does is he opens up his eye patch and can see into this realm, and with the hand he can summon the dead he's slain.
Oh, wow.
And they come into yeah, it's nasty. So I don't know why I think about that. It's because it reminds me of that for some reason. Seeing the things with the eye that's not there, but it's like but they're there. There's something there.
Wow.
It kind of reminds me of that. It's kind of nasty.
That's pretty crazy.
It is crazy, dude. It's a great. They're real pulpy reads. You could probably read the whole series in about 2 weeks.
Oh wow, yeah, short.
Yeah, they're very fast reads. It's very short.
Perrin looked at Talk oddly and asked if he said anything. Talk said no and hunched down in his saddle. He thought about Perrin pushing them hard on this pursuit. The horses were nearly spent. Talk also wondered what would happen when Perrin did catch the adjunct. He thought that Perrin intended to catch Lorne and the IMAS, driven by vengeance that overwhelmed his previous intentions. With Lorne dead or her plans awry, Perrin's command would be safe. He could join Whiskey Jack and the squad assuming they still lived. Talk could think of 1,000 flaws in the plan. The Talan Imass was first and foremost. Was Perrin's sword able to match it? In the past, Talk had seen sorcery flung at Talan Imass warriors in desperation. Nothing had worked. The only way to destroy an Imass was to chop it to pieces. He didn't think Perrin's sword was up to the task, but there was no hope of convincing him otherwise. Those Talan Imass are quite resilient.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes,
Gotta
they
chop
are.
them up into little bone bits.
Yeah, and it's the thing I wanted. I'm not trying to be spoilers, but I think about there's some stuff where those swords just slice through armor, and we've already seen it slice through that one dude like he wasn't even like tissue paper. It's like they've even mentioned that sword will slice through other steel. It'll break swords in half. You know.
Would you say this blade will cut?
Yes.
You familiar with that reference?
No, I'm not, but yes, it will.
Oh, man. You never watched Forged in Fire? It's on the History Channel. Oh man, it's it's a blade forging reality show, and they get
I think it's on Netflix. I think they put that on Netflix.
Yeah, they have it on Netflix, but I think it originally airs on History. Yeah, there's a guy on there named Doug Marcaida, and he's I think he's from the Philippines, and he has an accent, but he's coined the phrases "this blade will cut" because they test the blades out when the people forge them there, and then
I've watched a couple. Yeah, that's cool.
If it's a really good blade, this blade will kill.
Oh, is that the coveted solicitation from him? It's just this blade will kill.
I guess it depends on the test that they want. Sometimes they have to slash bags filled with coffee beans or something or sand, and then you would want it to cut in that case. But if it's trauma test on like a ballistic gel dummy, then you want it to kill, right? So I guess it just depends on the nature of the test.
Cool.
You got to watch that show. It's pretty cool. There's some really cool weapons that they make on there. Yeah,
I've watched one or two episodes because I love the idea of doing that myself. But that talking about sweaty, it's like I don't want to sweat over some molten steel, beating it. But I'm fascinated by the idea of it, though. It's same with glass blowing. I'm fascinated by those things.
Oh, glass blowing! You could get me to learn blacksmithing, but glass blowing, no way.
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
It's too delicate. I just think, forging is difficult, but I think the margin of error is a lot less than glass blowing.
It's probably more forgiving, yes. I think it's a tad more forgiving.
Yeah, I think it's more forgiving. You can recover sometimes.
It's like you cannot beat the stuffing out of the glass you're blowing.
Yeah. All right. Back to the story. They came upon another dead raven. It was swollen by the sun. Talk rubbed his scar again, then almost fell from his saddle as a clear and precise image appeared in his head. He saw a small shape, moving so fast as to be but a blur. Horses screamed, and a massive tear opened up in the air. He jolted, as if something large and heavy had struck him, and the tear yawned, swirling darkness beyond. Talk heard his own horse scream, then it was gone, and he found himself gripping the hinged horn of his saddle with all his strength. A dark premonition?
Oh, yes. I believe so.
Perrin didn't notice, and he continued onwards. Talk shook himself, leaned to one side, and spat. You gotta love that Seven Cities affectation.
I love it. Oh, I do.
Yeah.
I love it. I always love the spitting.
Mm-hmm. He thought about what he had just seen and realized he had seen a warren opening. He spurred his horse up to meet Perrin. Talk said, "Captain, we're heading into an ambush." Perrin's head snapped around and his eyes glittered. He said, "Then prepare yourself."
That's Clint. Nice,
a little
Clint
brash. Yeah, why is he so confident?
I don't know. He has no reason to be so confident, I believe.
Yeah.
It's like he already knows how bad he knows that Lord's bad. He knows nothing about the Imass. He just knows legends of them. But I would think the legend would be enough to keep you from not wanting to encounter one in a face-to-face encounter.
It seems really brash.
Yeah, he is a little brash. Well, he's also young too.
Yeah, I was gonna say young, inexperienced. So, and he might have gotten overly confident because of what he did with that sword and the Hound of Shadow.
One thing it's kind of funny about I've noticed on this read through is that he seems a lot more angry here And maybe that's one of the reasons I've overlooked him sometimes. But then I kind of look back and I said, well, after all, he was killed. I mean, like 5 minutes in, not 5 minutes in, but 5 minutes into his command of the bridge burners, the guy's killed.
Yes.
And then he's like, bargained for and brought back. And then other crazy things happen to him. He knows next to nothing other than he's just out of his depth. Donnie, you're out of your element. It's he's out of his element.
I don't think he was as love-stricken with Tattersall as Crocus is with Chalice.
Oh my God! I'm thinking South Park. There's some South Park.
Dude,
Chalice.
I heard some compliments on your love voice that your Crocus impersonation.
Oh no, I don't even know what my impersonation was. That's too funny.
Yeah, last week's episode. Go listen to it. You'll hear it yourself.
It's so bad. We say so much. We've talked for almost a year now. It's like I don't know what we've said from 1 minute to the next. It's like, did we talk? Did we say something? It's like, oh gracious.
Talk was about to protest, then thought, what was the use? He strung his bow and loosened his scimitar in its scabbard, then set an arrow against the bowstring. Or in other words, he prepared his combo.
Right on. Can you say scimitar in its scabbard 3 times real fast?
No. That's you're the expert at that kind of stuff.
Is that my forte?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. Sometimes I can do it. Sometimes I can't.
Yeah. Talk said, "It'll come by Warren, Captain." Perrin didn't question Talk. He almost looked eager. Talk studied Perrin's sword. Chance. The light played along the polished blade like water. Somehow, it also looked eager to Talk's eye. Only one eye.
To his eye, singular, yes.
Yeah. And thus the chapter ends.
Yeah, good chapter. Good setup story. It's good. We're getting set up.
Yeah, it was a lot of exposition, some good info. For standout moments, I like Lauren recognizing the danger in her complacency and acting to change it. Many people don't take well to any type of criticism, and it shows a lot of character being able to admit one of your weaknesses.
I agree to that because I have a hard time taking rebuke, as it says in the Bible. It's biblical that you're supposed to. It's like take rebuke sometimes because sometimes you need it, and it's So I agree that it's good job, Lauren. Nicely done.
The idea of the Jaghut Tyrant and the Talan IMS Bonecaster taking on the gods is just crazy to me. What power levels we're talking about there? Yeah,
and again, that is a frightening idea to me, and I love the idea of it all, but I love the idea that this is just on the outside possibility to take down Rake. And we're going to do all this on the shot that maybe we can. This will be what takes out Rake.
Yeah.
So it's like, all right, good luck with that, folks. I don't think you get to be 300,000 years old, a high mage, and and a great swordman all together, by being any slouch in any of these aforementioned departments.
Well, you just need an equal power that may or may not do what you hope it does, so that you can get closer to your goal. Or the planet might get destroyed. One of the two outcomes.
Exactly.
It's like...
Exactly. It could be summoning something here. It's just, this could be the end of all life as we know it, or hopefully Rake will step up and take care of business for us.
Yeah. The introduction of light to darkness and the problems it caused within the Tistandi has always interested me. So I did appreciate them covering that.
Yeah, and I agree. That's always a big thing. That's always it's very enigmatic. As is so much of this. I think. Would you agree that a lot of times in certain things, over explanation ruins things? Sometimes leaving things a little enigmatic makes it better.
Yeah, in that context, I think it was a great way to introduce it because it's not like some of the other scenarios where the way Warrens are introduced, it's very confusing for some people, right? It's a pretty clear-cut story. She was alone. She searched for something. She found light, and it caused a problem with the people that worshipped her, right? You're left wanting to hear more about this scenario, but it's not confusing, really.
No, it's really, really straightforward. And like I said, I'm like you. I've never tried the Forge of Darkness stuff, because of the fact that it's not finished now. I did start the Witness trilogy because of the subject that
Couldn't
is
wait.
supposed to be.
You just couldn't
couldn't
wait.
wait. I couldn't wait.
Yeah.
It was great, by the way. But it's the impetus behind this.
You started talking about that, and then that kind of.
I think behind the show, behind our podcast.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You started talking about it, and I said that kind of. The idea progressed from there. Yeah, Dan. Yeah, I just know that if I Karsa is one of my, if not my favorite character. It's really toss up between him and Kalam. But knowing I would want more of that story and having to wait years would kill me.
Yeah,
so I am the type of person that I don't like to watch shows as they're coming out. I wait till they're done, then I watch them.
I do too.
Same deal with the books. If I can wait till the series is ended, I do wait. Where I did not do this the last time was Game of Thrones, and
that's
still
not over, correct?
I lost. No, it's not. And then I lost interest before whatever the last book he wrote came out, and I never even read it.
Okay.
And so that's the danger of it. If the author just kind of gives up and stops writing. Or it takes forever.
And I'm always so thankful to you on the introducing me to Erikson, because it was done. And it's the thing with the being done, folks, is that it's not like when people talk about it being a slog to get through, it's a slog to get through because it's a long read. It's not a slog because it's great fun to get through. And Erikson never quits. He carries it through all the way, and it's almost good.
Well, you say that he hasn't finished the Karkanos trilogy yet.
Well, so, I'm talking about he's finished this 10-book arc.
The core series. Yeah.
So the core series is over there, and so I've enjoyed the fact that this too is done on that side, and it's been because it's been so good. It's such a good show. It's the greatest book. It's the greatest book.
Yeah, and it ends well.
Yeah, it does. That's what I mean. Is he carries through, at least with this 10-book series from front to end, is just magnificent. But as far back to what we're talking about here about standout moments, I do like the realization that Lauren has about the Jaghut becoming human, and also learning that she knows nothing about the Jaghut at all, and it's horrifying that she knows nothing about these obviously very powerful things that she knows next to nothing about. But we're going to wake one of them up from the dead.
Yeah, she feels trapped in that decision, right? She has to do it because she's the adjunct. She's not Lauren.
Yeah, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I really liked all the interactions between Call, Crocus, Kruppa, and Murillo. Very entertaining.
Yeah, very genuine, like we were talking about at the time. Very genuine.
Mm-hmm. It seems like they've known each other for a long time.
Yeah. I'd like to see some of those adventures.
And then finally, seeing the development of Talk's second sight is interesting as well.
Yeah. I like that. I like that too. That's going to get really interesting.
Cool. All right. Well, you have any final thoughts?
Yeah. No, just a good episode. It's a good episode. It's really can't wait.
Great
Next
job
week's going to be a really good one. I think it's going to be. I can't remember what happens next, but it's, as we know, usually Erikson has like kind of a build up. Then he has something's probably going to happen next episode. I'm assuming.
Yeah, I hope the ambush happens next episode.
Yeah. Yep.
We'll see. All right.
Yep,
thanks, everybody.
We'll see.
See you next week.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody.
We thank you all for joining us today.
Again, we'd really like to thank you for taking the time to be with us, and we've had a really great time talking about the topic today.
If you would like to support our show, you can find us at HorseFrogProductions.com, where you can find our Patreon link. Depending on the platform you're listening from, it may also be in the episode description.
And if you'd like to contact us through email, it's at contact@horsefrogproductions.com.